This is Lantec's Video Interface Edition 14, in which I'll be bringing you news of new product line now sold and supported by Lantec, and some interesting news about the latest 1200 dpi networkable laser printers from Lexmark with some innovative software.
I've got all the latest industry news, of course.
I'll be taking a 1995 look at Windows 95 and finding out when can we expect it and what can we expect. And I'll be speaking with Martyn, Hampson, one of the UK's leading experts on the internet. So here's the stock frame index. You might like to reset your VCR minutes and seconds counter now. Firstly, thanks for the dozens of reply paid cards you sent back before Christmas. Might just have had something to do with free chocolates and calendars, but we're very grateful for the feedback all the same. You said some nice things about the programme and came up with some really great ideas, and you'll be seeing the results of them as the year progresses. Please keep the cards coming, we love to read them, and it helps us to help you. But first, a special extra item. It's not often that the PC industry makes the front pages of national newspapers and is featured on the television news, but that's been the case recently. This has been brought about, of course, by the problems with the Intel Pentium chip. A minor flaw was originally discovered in the Pentium chip by Intel's own engineers last summer. At that time, it was considered so minor that Intel decided not to advise manufacturers or users. But in November, an American professor of mathematics found the bug, and at that point the matter swiftly became public property. On the 1st of December, IBM stated that they would establish telephone numbers worldwide to help customers determine if they have a problem and work with them to implement an appropriate resolution. IBM stated that upon customer need, they would provide for replacement of Pentium chips and add an informational letter to all new shipments of Pentium-based machines. However, on the 13th of December, IBM halted shipments of Pentium-based computers, a decision they made based upon their own research. IBM Research Division had conducted some tests and stated that common spreadsheet programs recalculating for 15 minutes per day could produce an error as often as once every 24 days. Now, for a corporate with 500 Pentium-based machines, this could result in as many as 20 mistakes a day, said IBM. Now, we at Lantec are concerned that our customers are fully conversant with the situation. So on the line now by Intel ProShare, of course, is Michael Sullivan, Public Relations Manager for Intel UK. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Steve. Thanks for inviting Intel to join the program today.
Michael, do you concur with the findings of IBM's research division?
Well, unfortunately, the IBM announcement on the 13th came as a surprise to us. We weren't expecting it, and we had spent quite a number of weeks and actually months studying the issue with the floating point unit in the Pentium processor. So we believe we have a very good technical understanding of it, and we do disagree with IBM's findings. We hope that someday we'll both be able to sit down and discuss the situation and come to some sort of an agreement about it. But in fact, we don't agree, and at this point in time, IBM seems to be the only company that has taken a view that is, that dramatic in one direction. We've seen some comments in the industry about the calculations, and even Dr. Nicely, Professor Nicely, doesn't really agree with the IBM conclusions.
Okay. This has come at a very bad time, actually, for Intel, hasn't it? Is there a danger, do you think, of users saying, well, we'll forget Pentium for the next 6 months and we'll go back to 486, where, of course, Intel have competition?
I don't know that I would agree that people would want to go back to old technology. I think that with technology, there come problems from time to time. I think that with the automobile, we have congestion, but that doesn't force us to go back to the horse and buggy. We need to continue to move forward. And the 486 would be the wrong direction. The chip was introduced in 1991, and the performance of that processor is limited by today's software applications. And so I think that really won't be an issue.
Okay, this is the first time that a technical issue has ever reached total public awareness in this way. Has this surprised you a little?
I think it is a surprise to Intel and the industry that a flaw in a microprocessor has reached this level of visibility. We've dealt with the problem when it surfaced the way we typically do with issues, which is to take a look at the issue, see if it's significant, and work on an engineering level with our customers to resolve the issue. And this time it took on a life of its own, really, much faster than we ever thought it would.
Right. Can you blame some of this on the Intel Inside campaign. It was phenomenally successful, and the Intel Inside logo is now acknowledged by marketing people worldwide as being one of the best known in the world. Had you not put that effort into that campaign, do you think anybody would have noticed?
Well, that's a pretty good point. I think that the marketing campaign that we undertook was designed to make the microprocessor and the Pentium microprocessor a household word, and we achieved that, and therefore when the issue surfaced, there was a much broader and ready audience for the ensuing press. I think, though, that if we had it to do all over again, we would probably have done the campaign anyway, because what we're noticing now is that for the first time in history, our billings for microprocessors for the Pentium exceed the billings for the 486, which represents a sea change in what kinds of PCs people are buying. And the momentum is very strong at this point, and we think that this year we'll sell more Pentium processors than 486s. So in spite of the publicity, the campaign has been a success, and it's not something we would regret.
Right. So Pentiums are still showing strong sales?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we have been monitoring the retail channels fairly closely since this issue developed. And what we saw is that on a worldwide basis, sales continue to grow. We had a very strong Christmas across the world. And in fact, in Europe as well, the sales out and the retail channels was certainly over 20%. And in some channels, some retailers experienced 30%. So we had a very strong Christmas selling season for Pentium.
Right. But nevertheless, you are replacing a lot of the previous style of Pentium chips. What is this going to cost over the next year or so?
Yes, well, as you're aware, we did announce in December that we would change our policy with respect to the Pentium and basically offered a no questions asked, no cost replacement policy for any customer who felt that for whatever reason they would rather have a replacement chip. Now, we feel that most people won't need that, but for those who do, we have put in place a program, and we set aside in the fourth quarter $475 million to handle both the write-down on some existing inventory as well as the cost of replacing chips and all of the logistics that go behind that. Right. So what we've done now is set aside enough money that we believe that this issue is financially behind us, hopefully forever.
I hope so too. To give us some idea, how much is $475 million as a proportion of Intel revenues?
Well, fortunately, we had a very strong year, and that amount of money is certainly significant, but we managed to have a quite profitable year in spite of that. So I think for us, we're looking at it as a significant amount of money. It's certainly a significant learning experience that we've gone through, but we think it's an investment in our future. It sends a strong message to our customer base that Intel does stand behind its products and does care about its customers. And in the end, the processes that we've put in place to handle the customer concerns, I think, will make us a stronger company and a company that's better able to respond to any problems in the future.
Tell me something. Do you feel a bit as though you're under a microscope at the moment? Everybody's watching Intel very closely at the moment, aren't they?
Yes, they certainly are. I think that we're used to being under the microscope to some degree, but not usually with this much of a critical eye in the industry. I think that we enjoy the limelight. It has its risks and its rewards, and but we continue to forge ahead with developing new technologies, ProShare, newer versions of the Pentium, the P6 processor, and continue to spend a lot of money on research and development. So I think that we'll continue to be at the forefront as the public looks to the computer industry for news. Michael,
you mentioned ProShare just now. I think we should point out that, in fact, our viewers are seeing the first ever UK public demonstration of Intel ProShare linked to an H320 standalone video conferencing system using some beta software at your end, I gather.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's right. We do have some beta software that we've developed that links ProShare with devices that are based on the H.320 standard. And you are seeing a demonstration right now. It is a technology demonstration. I'll be careful to say that because we haven't yet shipped the product, although we do expect to very soon. So your customers can look for that in the near future.
Okay. There's obviously great things still to come from Intel, many of them. Michael Sullivan, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Steve.
Lantec are fully conversant with all the procedures put into place by the manufacturers whose PCs we sell to deal with this situation. I think it's worth reiterating that there's no need to panic, but if you feel that you have a concern, contact your Lantec account manager who has all the details of the actions being taken by IBM, Compaq, Digital, Toshiba, and so on. And now, Michael Wade.
Lantec have just added Apricot computers to their product portfolio, and so we've invited along to Video Interface Tim Taylor of Apricot Computers. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Mike.
Tim, this is quite an old Apricot system.
Yes, indeed. It's our first PC design dating back to 1983, based on an Intel processor and DOS. It actually predated industry standards, which came into play later, around 1986, but it shows how long we've been actually designing PCs.
Indeed. And what's been happening at Apricot since then?
Well, much has happened since then, but a reference point that most people have seen, and Andy Warhol's 50 Minutes of Fame, was our appearance on the Troubleshooter programme on BBC Two. And that actually coincided with a time that we'd identified a need for Apricot to become really a global player, and therefore needed a partner that could give us that capability. A number of suitors were looking at Apricot, mostly because of the innovative design. As you can see, the design of that was very distinctive back in '83. And at the end, Mitsubishi Electric acquired the Apricot business, research and development, and sales and marketing. And that's where we are now, a fully owned subsidiary of Mitsubishi Electric.
Right, so presumably some benefits flowed from that Mitsubishi acquisition.
Well, absolutely. They go two ways, is that it gives Apricot the ability and financial stability to actually grow the business in the way we need to. Investment to keep our quality systems, manufacturing processes up to very high standards, and also the cross-fertilisation of R&D efforts between our PC technologies and Mitsubishi's electronics. And we've since then built our markets in Japan, Pacific Rim and Europe, and are continuing to grow on what is already an established worldwide infrastructure that Mitsubishi have. And
so your computers are now manufactured in Japan, I suppose?
Well, it's an assumption often made. In fact, no, it's not true.
Really?
They are still designed in Birmingham. We have our design facility on the Birmingham University campus, and manufactured in Glenrothes near Edinburgh, where there's been substantial investment in actually bringing more of the processes we used to subcontract back to source. So we can clearly say that it's a UK-developed product. However, significant exports are now made to Japan or cold to Newcastle.
Okay.
I say.
Right. And what are the keys, as far as you're concerned, in terms of your products and that design capability?
Well, a number of people will say to you that PCs are commodities. However, we know that the pace and change of technology means we have to work very closely with a lot of partners in the industry ourselves. And so one of the keys is the relationship we can offer, close availability of R&D. We like to be market driven, we like to hear what users say firsthand and take people to see them. But in particular, in terms of what we produce, is that the products really fall into two categories. The network workstation, we've always prided ourselves on integration. This recently won the February 1995 Editor's Choice for Network Workstation in PC Magazine, and it comes from a long line of awards where we've taken a very designed low-profile footprint and put in security, networking and audio.
Right.
So that's one aspect of the integrated design.
Right.
And we apply that to our PC range as well. So our PC range spans all the normal processor modules and comes with integrated networking, audio, security, or without. And in particular, we're finding the acceptance of our Pentium ranges not only by the magazines, the press and the trade, but increasingly the number of corporates who actually put it through some very rigorous testing, sometimes to destruction.
Indeed.
Where we're beating many of the well-known brand names who are active in that market today.
Right. So, why the partnership between Lantec and Apricot?
Well, clearly our market acceptance and market share is growing, not just in the UK, and that we believe now that we're a very credible alternative in the corporate market, and we need a good partnership with an organisation with like objectives. What we see really is that the services, logistics and objectives at Lantec actually complement our own growth in the market in terms of our products and objectives, and we feel that at this point we need to be extremely selective and who we actually move into those markets with. And frankly, the fit between the two companies is an excellent one.
Okay, good. And so from here on in, what do you think are going to be the key products and the key developments as far as Apricot's concerned?
Right. In terms of developments, the industry isn't going to slow down, so we've obviously got to keep bringing the technologies that are right for the market. So we see obviously that the Pentium range will increase in functionality and performance from here on in, but also, rather too big to bring today, we're working on a super server development project, which is brought together by a fairly unique team in the industry, and that is to say, that's Mitsubishi, what were mainframe designers, who once were an OEM for IBM mainframes, and our own PC server development team. So we're actually creating a server which is aptly project name Shogun, to bring together the systems management that you'd expect for mainframe class product, but also with the technology and cost basis of a PC server. And we'll be bringing that to market around the end of Q2. With the investment on the systems management side, we see that as a very exciting product.
All right, so nearer the time you'll come and talk to us about Shogun, I'm sure. Anything else that is significant for you in the future?
Well, very much so. There's a lot of talk about convergence in the industry, but with Mitsubishi and its huge resources and development laboratories, is that we see a great deal of benefit coming from, and products of course, coming from the bringing together of Mitsubishi's electronic consumer products, communication products, and our PC technology, which are now being marketed worldwide under the Apricot brand name.
Right, we look forward to seeing more of those products. Tim, thanks very much for coming in today.
Thanks very much.
One of the reasons that we've all been looking forward to the new year is that, of course, it makes it 1995, the year when we see Windows 95. We felt that for the first programme of the new year, we should at least see the new product. With us to show us is Jeremy Gittins, who's the product manager from Microsoft UK. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Indeed, welcome back, because you've been with us before, but you brought an interesting new product that everybody's waiting to see. But the question I think everybody wants me to ask you is, when are we going to see that product?
Right, Windows 95 will release to manufacture in the first 6 months of this year as promised. It takes 6 to 8 weeks to manufacture the product, and it'll be on the shelves in August of this year. Right. Even if I have to copy all the floppies myself.
That you may be in for quite a job if you volunteer to do that. What sort of PC are we going to need to run this? Are we going to need a very fast and very expensive PC to run the new?
Compatibility is a very important goal of Windows 95. In terms of hardware, if you're happy with the performance of Windows on a 386 running with 4 megs of memory, you'll be just as happy with Windows 95. But as you add more memory to your PC, you'll get much more performance out of Windows 95. So the base is a 386 PC with 4 megs of memory.
Right.
Above that, you'll get more performance out of Windows 95 than you currently do with Windows today.
Right, okay. There are so many issues that we should address over the next months leading up to the release of the product. There's Microsoft Network, there's plug and play, there's administration and so forth. But I think what people really want to see for this first programme on the subject is just what it looks like. Can you give us a quick demonstration of what we're going to see on our desktops come August?
Certainly. Windows 95 has a new intuitive user interface, and it's been tried and tested over thousands of hours internationally to make sure that it is intuitive and easy to use. Indeed, there are studies, and this study here by the Usability Sciences Corporation has come up with some very interesting statistics. A novice user can get up to speed on Windows 95 in 20 minutes. After 90 minutes, they are twice as productive on Windows 95 as they would be on Windows 3.x today.
Right.
So let's now have a look at the product. And here you'll see the new user interface. Now just imagine for a few minutes now that I'm a novice user, and I'm looking at this for the first time, and I want to do some word processing. Well, looking at it now, it's pretty obvious where I start. No double clicking, that's not intuitive. Just a single click here, and where do I go to find my word processor? Well, let's go to Programs. That seems like an obvious place to look, and we'll go to the top item here, Accessories, and sure enough, down here is something called WordPad.
Right.
Well, let's have a look at this application. In fact, this application is built into Windows 95.
Right.
And I'm not connected to a printer, so we'll continue there. And here you can see it is a word processor built into Windows 95. It's capable of formatting and creating rich text. What we'll do here for the demonstration is go to a file which I've created some time ago, and we'll make that full screen. So here you can see in seconds I'm able to open a word processor. Now let's go back to the Start button and perhaps run a 16-bit application. Office application here. We'll look at Excel.
Right.
And Microsoft Excel is coming up here, and we'll again open a document that I've seen before, I've used before. This is my expenses form. And you can see here now that I have two applications open. Now currently, less than 24% of Windows users open more than one application at a time. Alt-Tab isn't intuitive. With Windows,
is that simply the reason that people just forget how to do it and how to switch between them?
There are many reasons, and we've done a lot of studies on this. Alt-Tab isn't intuitive, but also there's a fear that when you use an application and it's full screen, it's hidden your other application.
Right.
And a lot of users of Windows are currently afraid that they've lost that data.
I see.
So what we've done with Windows 95 is we have a Start button, but we also have a taskbar. And you can basically just change the application that you're using by just clicking on the buttons on the taskbar here.
Right.
Just like changing the channels on your TV.
Yes.
Now let's say I've been using Windows now for a few minutes, which I have, and there was an application that I've been given or I created some while back that I want to find, and I'm not sure where it is. What I can do with Windows 95 is go to the Documents menu. Now within applications today, you find the last 4 applications that you accessed. With Windows 95, under Documents, you see the last 15 documents that you accessed here. So I'm going to go to a document called Demo Script for the Computer Shopper Show.
This is regardless of the application that created them?
Totally independent
So
of the
it's the
application.
last 15 jobs you did?
Absolutely.
Virtually. Right.
Absolutely.
Oh,
and they're listed in
that's good.
alphabetical order. So now you can see on the taskbar here, I have my 3 applications open.
Right.
Now let's go and have a look at some of the other functions on the taskbar. So I've minimized all those applications there, and I'm going to go back to the Start button. Let's say I've been using Windows 95 for some time and I want to increase my proficiency. Let's go to Help. And you've seen that I'm using my mouse here, but let's say I want to change the click speed on my mouse. So we've made it far more intuitive. You just put in mouse, take from this menu here, double click speed, and there you see Help on changing click speed of your mouse. And I think the first thing you'll notice is it's condensed. You no longer now need to take a scrap of paper, read it and write everything down and then apply it. Because there are hyperlinks within Help. So it says, click here to display your mouse properties. And what I'm doing here is going to the dialog that you would normally see under Control Panel.
Oh, that's very nice. Yes.
Now I don't know what these things do. So all you have to do here is click on the question mark and then click on what you want to know more about. So I'm going to click on that button there. And it tells me that this is tells me the function of that button. Also, I can change my click speed here just by the slider bar. This is typical of the dialogues that you see within Windows 95.
Well, clearly there's a lot of very new and good features for people coming up in 95. We hope, obviously, that you'll return to us over the next few editions of the programme, possibly leading up to the introduction of the product, and show us a little bit more.
Certainly, I'd love to, and there's so much more to Windows 95 that we could talk about and demonstrate to you, and I'd love the opportunity to do that.
Okay, well, we'll certainly invite you back, Jeremy. Thank you very much. And now, with her update of what else is going on in the industry, is Alison Bull.
Hello again. The new Hewlett-Packard Colour LaserJet will be launched in the UK on the 1st of February. It offers both fast black and white printing at up to 10 pages per minute and colour at up to 2 pages per minute. The printer has 8 meg of RAM and a resolution of 300 dpi. At the same time, some other HP products are now being withdrawn. The DeskJet 500C is now gone, as is the Laser 4P and 4MP, which we previewed in the first ever edition of Video Interface. HP are expected to announce replacement products during the next 3 months. Compaq have phased out the enhanced Prosignia 486 and Pentium machines, but the PCI-based Prosignia 500 remains. Look out for further Compaq server announcements later this month. Revision B of Compaq's November Smart Start is now shipping, which means that you can now activate Windows NT version 3.5 and SQL version 4.21. If you have an older version of Smart Start and wish to activate NT 3.5, Oracle 7 or Insight Manager 2.3, you need to buy an up-to-date Smart Start option kit for £50. And now for Toshiba. In mid-January, Toshiba announced a V34 version of their PCM CIA fax modem. Recommended retail price is £375 and it's shipping now. Supporting data and fax speeds of up to 28,800 bps and V42 error correction, the modem includes WinFax Lite software. Also announced was the T2450CT, a DX4 75 MHz version of the T2400 range of portable PCs. Comes in 2 hard disk sizes, 320 and 540 megabytes. Prices start from an RRP of £3,350. It looks and feels the same as the T2400. At the same time, Toshiba announced price reductions on the T2400, 4600, 4700 and T4800 ranges. Call your Lantec account manager for all the details. Incidentally, look out for some new Toshiba entry-level products soon. An IBM press release just this week announces that all shipments of IBM Pentium systems will from now on contain the new up-level version of the Pentium chip. The new systems have different serial number prefixes to enable the new to be differentiated from the old. And now the news from Hayes. Hayes are now shipping their new V34 modems. Released in the USA in November, European products are now on the shelves. Providing 28,800 bits per second, the new units are also compatible with the 1 million VFast class modems currently installed worldwide. Intel have announced the fastest member of the Overdrive family of processors, the Pentium Overdrive. The new CPU upgrade brings Pentium power to existing Intel 486 CPU-based systems. Based on Intel's latest 3.3 volt 6 micron technology, the new processor features superscalar architecture. Performance increases of up to 200% are claimed depending on the application and the system being upgraded. In a separate move, Intel have also reduced the prices of current overdrive processors. And finally, news that IBM was issued more US patents during 1994 than any company has ever received in any year. 1,298 of them, in fact. It's interesting to note that the top patent registrants were at high technology companies in and around the computer marketplace. The others were Toshiba, Mitsubishi, Canon and Hitachi. Marshall Phelps Jr., Vice President of Intellectual Property for IBM, said, "We are pleased with the ranking and will continue to work hard to bring innovations to market quickly." Here are some of the pause button details of just 3 categories, in case you're interested. So, look out for improvements in CD-ROM technology, ATM communications and some new super-fast improved semiconductor chip techniques. And that's Lantec's first industry update for 1995.
Printer technology certainly doesn't stand still. A year ago, Lexmark International showed us their 4039 range. Now we're going to see a new range from Lexmark International, and here with me today is Catherine Dickinson from Lexmark. Hello, Catherine.
Hello, thank you very much for inviting me on the programme.
Catherine, this is the new Optra range. It obviously is designed, but does it give us the kind of print quality that we now need?
I believe it does, certainly. 18 months ago we were the first to market with 600 DPI, and now today I'm showing you a 1200 DPI printer.
Really?
So we've actually doubled the quality, and that's the sort of quality you can now expect to get from this printer.
That's very impressive quality. Catherine, that's clear, but what about the variety of paper and card and transparencies that I now want to use in my laser? Can I do that with the Optra range?
Yes, you can. That was done on photocopier paper, but you can even go up to cardstock paper like that, which is actually 300 gram.
That's like the cover of a report or something,
That's
isn't
right,
it?
yes. So that, together with the transparencies, A5 paper, A4 paper, will all feed through the printer with its various different options, including the duplex, which you have on the front here.
Right. So, I've got a duplex option, and I'm sure there are some others as well, but what about network connectivity? Is that going to be a problem?
No, it isn't. With the printer, you actually get 2 internal network cards and you can have an external network card. And this can be Ethernet or token ring. If you could just lift the cover, I'll actually show you the side of the printer where you actually see the two internal cards, and you'll also see in there slots for memory upgrades. All this can be done by a user. It doesn't need an engineer to do that.
So it will cope with the different network operating systems.
Correct.
Will it cope with the huge variety of applications? Application drivers become a nightmare, don't they?
Right, it certainly is a minefield, but before I answer that, could you just help me close the printer up? In answer to your question, yes, the Optra printer does come with application drivers. That's basically 4 diskettes come with the printer, and one of those diskettes is a Mark Vision printer utility, which I have here on the PC. I have the printer locally attached to the PC at the moment, so here we can see that the printer is attached on LPT1. By the arrows here we see that it's actually bidirectional. Now the Optra printers are totally bidirectional, so we get complete messaging from the PC to the printer. Now this printer happens to be locally attached at the moment, but it might well be on a network at the other end of the country. If so, we would have more placards here stating our network printers, and I could select on any of those placards to find out information about that printer.
Right.
Also here we have a picture of what the printer looks like and how it's being configured. Now some people might not be able to tell how that's configured just by looking at a picture, so we can go into the details file, and here you can see exactly how the printer is configured, whether it's got a duplex unit on it, a second tray. Also you can see a serial number of the printer. So you might have this printer up in Scotland and you might be based in London and you've forgotten the serial number of that printer. Simply click on this application and there's your serial number.
Right.
Also what we have here is, rather than going into the inside of the printer as we did earlier to show you the memory and the internal network cards, I can see here that I've got 2 megabytes of memory installed on this printer, and I've got 2 megabytes of flash memory. So there's no need for any operators or users to actually go into the panel of the printer to see what's on it. A very nice option that we have on the printer as well is the ability for me to pull up the operator panel of the printer.
Right.
So if we take the scenario that the printer again is in Scotland and I'm in London, I have a user call me up from Scotland saying, I've got a problem with my printer, not too sure how it's set up, can you please help me? Rather than me jumping on an aeroplane and going up there to see him, I can simply pull up the operator panel of his printer as if it was sitting in front of me. I can use the menu buttons, set up menu. I can basically check how he's got his printer set up.
Right.
I can also see if he's playing with the printer at the same time. If you could just press a couple of the buttons on the printer on the right hand side, you'll actually see the screen changing. So you can see from that that it's polling all the time and it is totally bidirectional.
Right.
I can also save those settings. So if a company decided to have certain configurations for their printers, I could save the settings and download them to all the printers on that network.
Catherine, you mentioned memory. Presumably the Optra range is very memory hungry, particularly for PCL5 or PostScript.
Well, in fact, it isn't. The Optra range isn't. What we've put into the Optra is memory compression. So a 4 megabyte piece of memory will be able to print a 12 megabyte file. The way that is done is when the machine is switched on and a job is sent to it, rather than splitting the memory into font, cache and whatever else, other partitions you might want to split it into, the whole of the memory is available for that job.
Right.
So it compresses it. So 4 megabytes of memory will run PostScript level 2, PCL5e, all at 1200 DPI for 95% of the jobs that
That's
you might want to
terrific.
send to it.
Okay. So we've got the quality and all the utility we need. It
Right.
certainly seems a range that's going to catch on. Catherine, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
You'll doubtless remember that in edition 13 we spoke with Professor Robert Spence about his vision of computing in the year 2020. Many of you said that you enjoyed that non-product piece in the programme. We're delighted therefore to announce that Compaq have agreed to sponsor a non-product item in each of the programmes during 1995. Many of you also suggested investigating communications, so for that first Compaq item we're researching the internet. We're pleased therefore to welcome Martyn Hampson, who's one of the country's leading internet experts. Welcome, Martyn.
Hi there, Steve.
Martyn, set the scene for us, will you, because the internet didn't just suddenly appear, it evolved, so how did it start?
Well, it's been growing over the last 20 years. It started in the mid-1970s with a research project funded by the US Department of Defense to construct a bomb-resistant network. And since that, after that it grew into the universities, particularly because of the Unix operating system in which there was a funded implementation for it. And nowadays it's all over the world in about 100 countries.
Right. We've also heard a lot recently about the term superhighway. Is the superhighway the internet? Are they two different things, or is a superhighway a collection of something else entirely?
Well, I think what's meant by the superhighway is basically a communications infrastructure for around the world, probably based on fibre optics, to use high-speed networking.
Right.
Internet could certainly make use of that, but so could a lot of other things, such as movies on demand, home banking, home shopping. So I think the information superhighway is slightly more than what the internet is.
Right, okay. The commercial uses of the internet, it started out as a military thing, then it became more of an academic thing, and now it's turning to commercialisation, isn't it? Is this a welcome move by the internet fraternity?
Well, I think the more people that go on the internet, the wider the community is going to be, and the more fruitful sharing of information on that network is going to be. So yeah, it's welcome.
In the early days though, everybody who was on the internet provided something to it, they gave something.
That's right.
But we're almost in the state now where there are more people taking information than there are providing it. Does this bode problems for the future?
It may. I mean, certainly the internet's going to become more of a service network, whereas before it was a lot of people contributing. I don't think that's going to be necessarily a bad thing, but it's going to have to be something that's watched carefully.
What about things like electronic mail and so forth? This is one of the things that the internet is best used for. A couple of aspects I'd like to take about this. One is security of the information that goes that way, because that's pretty poor, as I understand it. Could we deal with that subject?
Sure. I mean, as you said, it was basically academics sharing information in the early stages, and security wasn't seen as a particularly big issue. As commercial companies connect, then security is certainly more of an issue, and that's being addressed at the moment. There are techniques and protocols now that can encrypt information, can digitally sign messages, and they're coming into use, although not widespread right at the moment.
The other issue, I suppose, about electronic mail is are the providers of paper mail services like the Royal Mail, should they be worried at this stage, do you think?
Well, I'm not sure they should be worried. I mean, certainly the Royal Mail still send a lot of documents, but I'm sure it's something they should be aware of. Certainly companies like BT are offering a mail service.
Right, okay. What about ease of access and ease of use? Because it started off being a pretty unfriendly sort of interface, didn't it? It was typing and words on the screen. What's available to ease that process now?
I mean, I think a lot of that was basically the computers themselves. I mean, in those days, the computers were more difficult to use. As computers become easier to use, then a lot of graphical interfaces are coming to help you get your information off the network in an easy way. In particular, World Wide Web is used a lot nowadays, and that's like a hypertext system. If your users use Microsoft Help, it's like a help system, except when you click on an active link, you go off to the network to pick up your information rather than just get it off your local machine.
Right. And this is a nice graphical introduction or way into
it's
everything on the internet, is it?
You can access most things on the internet using it, probably not mail. You probably want a separate user interface for your mail reading.
Okay. If our customers who are commercial users wanted to make use of the internet, what sort of things other than mail could they use that for?
Well, a lot of companies are offering support services, so via mail they can offer support for their users, but they can also advertise what products they've got for sale, usually again via the web. So they would set up a web server maybe documenting their company, their product range, and people will come along and have a look at that.
I think it's important to note, as I understand it anyway, that there's certain conventions that one has to obey if you're a commercial user. You just can't start mailing everybody in the world with junk mail and so forth, can you?
Sure, there's a certain etiquette about things you can do. Doing massive junk mailings would be considered bad form, and you get a lot of messages back telling you not to do it, which is basically how the internet's pleased.
Right.
But putting up your information and letting people come to you, then I don't think there's any problem with that at all.
Right, okay. It relies a lot on goodwill, doesn't it, to keep it going, because there is no internet organiser as such. It's a lot of small and medium and large players all just working in collaboration.
Sure. I mean, the internet itself is a lot of autonomous networks that are run by different companies or publicly funded networks or even commercial networks, just stuck together. It's a bit like the telephone network. The telephone network has to work together. The telephone providers work together to provide the service, but as far as the user is concerned, you just dial a number, or you click, in the case of the internet, you click a hypertext link, and you've no need to know what contorted route it uses to actually get there.
How reliable is the internet? Is most of it working all the time?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain problems, especially, it really depends what network provider you're using. But for instance, the academic community in the UK have a problem at the moment in that the US link is very highly overloaded, so that's going to get upgraded shortly. So bits of the network, if it's getting heavily utilised, will need to be upgraded, and obviously there'll be a degraded performance until that upgrade happens.
But presumably it has to wait for some funding from universities or somewhere before that can happen.
That's right, yeah.
Yes, okay. If you were the managing director or the MIS director of a corporate company in the UK, would you be investigating the internet right now?
Actively, yes.
You would?
Yes.
Okay. I think we'll leave it at that point, and I don't mind telling our viewers that I'm gblansb2 at ibmmail.com, and please mail us if you want to. Martyn Hampson, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Steve.
If you have a pet subject you'd like to see us cover, or an expert you'd like to see and hear from in the Compact interview, drop us a line. You'll notice that the reply card has changed a little too. There is now a product section wherein you can write the name of any product you see that interests you, and we'll make sure you receive more information. There's also a questions section. Many of our guests are happy to answer individual questions by post, so if there's a burning issue you'd like to take up with one of our contributors, send in the card. That's it for this edition. Keep the feedback coming, it really helps. We'll be back on the 3rd of April with, we hope, a special on-location case study. Until then, goodbye.